So welcome. In this video we will have a look at some typical statistical procedures that you later need to apply in your statistic project. So when we have such a data set, this is a relatively big data set. It is from our first survey, but I have a lot of different classes here. So I think we have more than 120 participants in this survey. So what you see is that we have a lot of data and it's difficult to create any information out of this data. So we said statistics you can define as transforming big data sets into information. So the first important information that we want to have from this data set, for example, would be how many students do we have in which classes? Yeah, so that would be just a frequency table. So to create a frequency table, we need to click anywhere in the table because Excel automatically recognizes the whole table. Yeah, and then we click on Insert and pivot table. Pivot tables are a very comfortable procedure to work with big data set in Excel. So I click on pivot table, and this first window here, it shows the data set, and you see here is a frame around the data set because Excel automatically recognized the whole data set. And we want to have a new worksheet, ein neues Arbeitsblatt. So we don't need to change anything here in this window. We can just click on OK. Now we have a new worksheet. Yeah. And in this new worksheet, we have here an area we will create our frequency table now, so that we know how many students we have in all classes. And here in these windows, we can work on our tables. So let's create a frequency table. So therefore, we take the variable class, put it into the rows, into the Zeilen. Yeah, and now you see, now we have already all the different classes here. UE1 is University of Europe, first group, quantitative and qualitative research, and second group, summer semester 22. So that is when we put class into the rows, as I said. Yeah. Here, class just into the rows, and we see all the different classes here. And now we want to know how many students are in all these classes. So we take class again, put it into the values. Yeah. And now you see we have 15 students, Alba students here from Alba Berlin, the famous basketball club. We have ER is International Relations, ESM is International Management, Psychology 1, Social Work 1 and 2, and here we have University of Europe 1 and 2 groups. Okay, so that is a frequency table. When we have a frequency table, we usually also want to have a diagram. Yeah, so when you have presentations or when you write your research report, you should not have too much tables in the research report. Present the data in the form of diagrams. To have a diagram, we need to click somewhere into the table, then we go and insert, and here recommended diagrams. Here we have a bar chart. It's wonderful. We take the bar chart. Don't forget, we need to shape our charts in a self-explanatory way, which means first we need to add the data into the bars. With a right click, you can here add the data. Yeah. Then we need a meaningful headings. That could be, for example, number of students per class. And we also need a brief explanation that could, for example, be the biggest class is Psychology 1. Let's also add the number with 39 students. Or better would be participants in the survey, because not all students of the classes participated in this survey. Okay, so that means a self-explanatory, to shape a diagram in a self-explanatory way. We want to have a heading, we want to have the data in the bars, and we want to have a brief explanation beneath the diagram. So that is a frequency table. What is also important, let's go back to the data set. what is important is to understand that we have different types of data. And for different types of data, we need different procedures. The first differentiation that we need to make is we have numerical data here. Yeah. We also call these type of data interval scaled numerical data. And with these data, we can calculate averages, for example. But here, yeah, we have words, no numbers, and we can also not calculate an average between different classes. So we call this data nominal scaled data. So we have just created a frequency table for the classes. Let's now create a frequency table for interval scale data, and let's see what the difference is. So I go on insert again, pivot table, and now I take the same worksheet because I want to have the frequency table in the same worksheet because I don't want to create too much worksheets. Therefore, I need to go into the worksheet and to click into it so that Excel knows where he or she, I don't know if Excel is a he or she, but where Excel should create the new table. So we can click on OK. And now here we create a new table. And now we want to have a frequency table for interest in statistics. So again, as always with frequency tables, we put it into the rows. You see we have 10 different values and we also have empty cells. Yeah? We had a scale of from 1 to 10 for interest in statistics. So we take the same variable, put it into the values. And what you see now here is that here we have the sum. So if you have here a number of 20, that means that 10 students rated the interest with 2. But if you sum up 10 times the 2, then the result would be 20. So we don't want to calculate the sum, we want to calculate the count or the number. I don't know exactly what the expression in English is. So we need to go to value field settings. Therefore, we click on this little triangle and there we find this window value field settings, which we will need very often. So get used to this window. And here it's very easy just to click on Anzahl or count or number. What is this in English? I don't know exactly. Okay. And now we have the correct numbers here. And we can again insert a diagram. So you see close to a normal distribution. Some students don't have no interest or very low interest in statistics. Some have a relatively high, but most are in the center. Let's also insert the data. Okay. So that's the difference when you work with interval scale data. Here, numerical data where you can calculate an average. There, the default position is always sum and you need to change it to count or number. Okay, I propose that you make a pause now, pause the video, and you create a frequency table of how satisfied are the students with their class, with their studies, and also a frequency tables of males and females. How many males and females do we have in our data set? Okay, so I hope you were successful in creating some more frequency table and practice how to create frequency tables. And you are aware now of the difference when you create frequency tables with interval scale data, because there you need to change from sum to number. That is one interesting step that we have in statistics. What we also very often need, we want to calculate averages. We want, for example, calculate the average of knowledge in statistics. Yeah. Therefore, again, we click anywhere in the table, close this, and insert a pivot table. I create a new worksheet now, and now I take knowledge in statistics. I just put it into the values. And now it's again calculates the sum. So I need to go on value field settings and I can change here to average. So the average for knowledge in statistics is 4.22 on a scale from 1 to 10. You can also calculate more than one average here. For example, if you also want to have the average for interest in statistics, you can also put it in this window. and then click on value field settings, calculate the average. Yeah. So we can calculate a lot of averages. So I would like you also to calculate the average for alcohol. Yeah. So how many alcohol do the students drink here? So pause the video a little moment and calculate the average for alcohol. Okay. What we can also do as one of the first steps, we can also or let me say it in other words, so the first steps are univariate statistics, statistics that are related to just one variable. So for example, we create a frequency table for the classes, or we calculate the average for knowledge in statistics. Yeah? But then the second more interesting step is to evaluate hypotheses. For example, hypotheses about differences between groups. So for example, we assume that women are less interested in statistics than men. Yeah, that would be our hypothesis. Women are less interested in statistics than men. What we would do to investigate this hypothesis, we would just compare the averages of men and women with each other, and then we can see if this hypothesis is correct. So again, we click on Insert, Pivot Table, create a new worksheet. And now to compare the averages of two different groups, we take gender into the rows. And now we see here we have male, female, no answer, and diverse. And now we take interest in statistics into the values. Yeah, that is the difference to the frequency table. In the frequency table, we had the same variable in rows and values. Here we have different variables, and here we need to have an interval scaled variable because we want to calculate the average here. So we click on value field settings again and click on average. And we can also insert a diagram. And here you see those who didn't tell us about the gender have the highest interest with 8 points. Here we have the women, a little bit above 5 points, and males are at 6.8, I would say, all in all. Let's insert the data so that is easier to see. You can even shorten these long numbers to 2 places after the comma. If you make a double click on these numbers, then here you find number, and you need to change from standard to Zahl to number. So because there is the default position is that you only have 2 places after the comma. Yeah, and that is much easier to read now. Okay, so that would be a mean comparison. Yeah, so we have different groups and compare the means. Another example for to compare the means would, for example, be, and that would be interesting, are the differences according to the satisfaction with the studies between the different universities and classes. Yeah? So let's do that. So we click on Insert again, Pivot Table. Now I take the same worksheet here where I have already worked because I don't want to create too many worksheets. I need to click in the worksheet where we want to create our pivot table, say OK. And now, and that is interesting, are there big differences between the classes in the context of their satisfaction with their studies? So we go into the rows, put the classes here. Now you see here we have all the different classes. I think ALBA and these two are quantitative and qualitative methods are here from this university. Social work is from another university in Duisburg, I think. Psychology 1 is from the Sigmund Freud University. And I think this is a HWR in Berlin. Hochschule für Wirtschaft und Recht are management students, international relations and international management. So we now want to have the averages, how satisfied they are with their studies. So let's take this variable, here satisfied with their studies, put it into the values, and now we again have the sum, but we want to have the averages. So value field settings, averages again. And let's also insert a diagram. You will see after some time we will get very used to these procedures. We add the data, double click, and we want only 2 places after the comma. Therefore, we put this on number. So now you see the most satisfied is your class with 7. Oh no, and here the psychology 1, 7, 8, and here your class 7.5. Okay, so I propose that you pause the video again and evaluate some more hypotheses. For example, we want to know, are men or women more happy with their life? Yeah, so that is here the next variable after satisfied with studies, satisfied with life. And then also compare the means for working and not working students. Maybe the hypothesis is that students who are working are less satisfied with their studies because they have difficulties to coordinate work and study. So please evaluate these 2 hypotheses, and you can also choose other hypotheses. For example, do males think that they have a higher general knowledge than women? Yeah, or choose any hypothesis you like to, but practice a little bit comparing the means of different groups, and pause the video for that. Okay, one last procedure. I already said that we have 2 different types of data, numerical data and text data here. In this case, the text data is, for the text data, we cannot calculate any averages. We call it nominal scaled data, therefore. Here, these data where we can calculate averages, we call interval scaled variables. Yeah, or interval scaled data. So what is if we want to look for a relationship between 2 variables where we cannot calculate the mean, because that is the biggest difference. Here we can calculate the mean. For nominal scaled variables we cannot calculate the mean. So if we, for example, want to see if the percentage of men and women in the classes is the same or if it is different, then we need to create a cross table because we cannot compare the means. Yeah, so we click into our table, click on insert and insert a new pivot table. And now how to create a cross table, what we need when we cannot compare the means. So we take the class into the rows and gender into the columns. Now we have all the classes here, and you see why it is called cross table. So for example, here we can see how many female students we have in the ALBA class, or here we can see how many male students we have in the quantitative and qualitative methods class. Yeah, this is where the two variables cross each other, and that's why it's called a cross table. So let's fill in the values here. So therefore we have to take gender again and put it into the values. And now you see here we have 7 females and 8 males at ALBA. We have 10 females and 13 males at quantitative and qualitative methods 1. But it's difficult to compare these numbers because we have different amount of students in these classes. So if you want to compare in a cross table, it's very often makes sense to show the values in percentages. So we want to have here percentages in the row, because here we want to have 100%, so that all ALBA students are 100%, and then we want to see how many percent of the ALBA students are male and how many are female. And then we can see which class has the highest percentage of male or female students. So how can we change to percentage? We again need value field settings. Yeah. So I think you already know this window now. And here we have to click on this register, show values as. Then here we can click on this calculation. Here we have again a little triangle. If we click on that, and now again a new menu opens, and here we have Zeilen Gesamtergebnisse, or maybe if you have an English version, it's something like percentage in the row. So we click on this. Okay. Now you see all Alba students are 100%, and you see 46% are female and 53% are male. And you can see here we have 60% male students in quantitative and qualitative methods 2. And we have, for example, 100% female students in social work 1. We can also show a diagram. So let's insert a diagram. And here it's also very easy to see in which class we have more males and in which class we have more females. I insert the data and I want only 2 places after the comma again. So I have to click on number here. So that is our diagram. Now here the gray bar is the males. The orange bar are the females. So we have here Alba, we have more males. Quantitative and qualitative methods, we also have more males. But in all other class, we have more females. Okay, I hope this video was helpful for these basic procedures, and you need to know these procedures because you need to apply them in your exam, in your project to get your grades here in the course. So have some fun, and maybe you will see that it's very interesting sometimes to evaluate data and to evaluate hypotheses. So I hope that you have some fun. And sometimes when you evaluate data, it's a little bit like being a detective to find out what is the meaning of the data, to transform data into information. So far, bye-bye.